Hi, everybody. I'm just updating radars, which I'll get to show you in just a second. Good evening to all. Just been kind of a crazy night here. I'm meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Welcome to the Joe Cioffi Weather Show tonight, as we've got a lot of severe weather going on across my neck of the woods. And flash flooding is front and center right now in terms of all the watches and warnings. I'm going to be... I'm watching two monitors at the same time in case there are some additional warnings that go up. I may have to step away for a bit, but right now we've got some flash flood warnings up over parts of northern New Jersey, severe thunderstorm warnings up for parts of the northeastern part of the state of New Jersey into the Hudson Valley, and we've got some warnings in South Jersey, flash flood warnings in southeastern and south central Pennsylvania. There was a really, at least it was a little while ago, a pretty impressive line of storms that formed. These, what we're seeing tonight are thunderstorms that are basically, some of them are forming in lines, and some of them are forming in clusters. It's the ones that are in clusters that you want to pay attention to, because those are the ones that could wind up sitting over an area for a long period of time, as was the case in south central and parts of southeastern PA, getting clobbered with some very heavy rains. So I'm going to go right to the satellite view to show you what's happening here. Now, of course, we still have the, technically we have some of this is the remnants of Barry, but I have to tell you, given the extent of the tropical air that's up along the eastern seaboard, if Barry had not strengthened to the point that it strengthened, and if it was just maybe a depression, you probably would be seeing the same thing we're seeing tonight in terms of activity. We're getting the juicing up of the atmosphere today that occurred with temperatures climbing up into the low and middle 90s, the dew points climbing up into the 70s. I mean, it was just an absolutely oppressive day here. So you combine that with an upper trough and some tropical moisture, and kaboom, you're going to get some thunderstorms. You see the clouds are kind of stretched out northeast, southwest, and elongated. This started back yesterday in terms of the signature on the satellite view. You really don't have much left of the of the circulation with this. So it's all this tropical moisture. You got an upper trough that's sweeping it eastward, and the result, thunderstorms. You also have some strong thunderstorms. You can see the cloud tops back in the western lakes, because there's another complex of storms moving eastward from there, and that probably will move into my neck of the woods here in the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states for later tomorrow afternoon. But that's going to have less to work with. It's not going to have the hot, juiced-up atmosphere like we had today. That line also moved up through parts of the northern plains in northern Minnesota, northern plains in Minnesota and Iowa, and now is pushing east. So we're going to check that out on the radar view in just a bit. So Storm Prediction Center kind of did what I thought they would do with this today, and that is add the slight risk, which really matches up with the very large severe thunderstorm watch that continues. In fact, they had to actually extend it on the southern flank of this down into Delaware, and it runs from there all the way up across southern and southeastern New England, right up to Boston and Albany on the north side, and it includes New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. and Bolton. I think Washington was in it earlier, and now they're out of it. You see that the southern flank of it getting clipped a little bit as these storms move east. Meanwhile, out in the in the plains, you've got the slight risk of severe running from Missouri all the way up through Iowa, and there's that area of storms that's been moving southeastward all day is now moving into the southern part of that slight risk. A new severe thunderstorm watch up for the western Dakota and South Dakota and parts of southwestern North Dakota. And we've got a tornado watch actually up up in northern Minnesota there, so there are probably going to be some thunderstorms to deal with a little bit later on tonight. And as far as the radar activity is concerned, elsewhere it's just general thunderstorm activity that is going on. So why don't we jump right now? Let's go right to the radar views here and take a look at what's happening. So, of course, folks, it's 8:07 Eastern Time, so you know the drill. If you're watching this on a replay, you're going to want to make sure that you check for the latest weather information by going to your local National Weather Service forecast office page, and you can always access that very easily by going to weather.gov. This is the National Weather Service radar out of Upton, New York, which is in central Long Island, and there are strong thunderstorms now moving across northern New Jersey, heading for New York City and so Westchester County in the Hudson Valley, and actually points further north up into Putnam and Dutchess counties. And I think some of those storms are going to be moving across Long Island as well. So I'm going to have a fun drive home. These things are not really moving very quickly here. They're kind of inching along. They moved into western New Jersey back about a little bit before 7 o'clock. So that was about an hour and 10 minutes ago that they put the first severe thunderstorm warnings up for Sussex and Warren County. So it's taken a good hour plus for the storms to move across the northern part of the state. And now they're going to be pushing eastward. So I'll probably have some rains to contend with when I head home. Now, out to the west, I'm going to show you, this is the radar out of State College, Pennsylvania. So you can see the western edge of the storms that were in southeastern PA and actually still are. And the heavier rains that extend back to Lancaster. It's out of York and Harrisburg, but they run down from Lancaster down to about Baltimore. And the southern part of that is weakening a bit. And then you have some more showers and storms that are moving eastward from north central PA, from Williamsport down to State College to Altoona and south and west of there, and those are sliding off to the southeast. So let me pull up the Fort Dix radar out of central New Jersey, and here we go. So these storms, look at that line that formed in southeast PA and down into Delaware. That is now moving into southwestern New Jersey and approaching Philadelphia and eventually Trenton. I'm going to be curious to see if that holds together. The NAM model actually did, I think, a very good job in handling of all the short-range models. The NAM seems to really hit the bullseye tonight in terms of the intensity and the fact that these storms are fairly widespread as they move on up to the northeast. Rain, I thought from the get-go, was really going to be the bigger deal here. And it seems to be playing out that way because if you notice the green boxes, those are all flash flood warnings. You do have a few severe thunderstorm and marine warnings that are up, but really it's the flash flooding that I think is front and center here because with the juiced up tropical air and the dew points, you're not really dealing with a fast moving cold front here. You are seeing the moisture basically getting wrung out of the atmosphere, every drop of it, with rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches an hour in some of these storms that are moving on to the east. This is the radar view from upstate New York, which was very busy earlier today, up around I-90 and points north with showers and storms, but now that activity has diminished. There were thunderstorms that developed in upstate New York and in New England ahead of the stuff that came out of Pennsylvania. So there was a bit of a time gap as far as the activity was concerned for my area, but the northern storms, the storms up to the north across northern Connecticut that move through Massachusetts and near the Boston area, you can see the Boston radar view here showing there were a couple of severe thunderstorm and marine warnings earlier, but those storms have now moved on to the east. And if you look down over Long Island here in Long Island Sound, there's a big thunderstorm in the Sound. It's probably just touching the shores of Connecticut near New Haven, I think that is. I can't see. I'm sorry, that's It's Bridgeport? I can't even read it. Yeah, it's Bridgeport. I'm sorry. I'm having a tough time with my glasses. Bridgeport, there's a cell somewhere between Bridgeport and Port Jefferson on Long Island that is moving right across the sound and basically skimming the immediate shoreline. Shows you how unlucky or lucky, depending on your perspective, that Long Island is when it comes to these storms. But when we take a look again back at the Upton radar, it seems as if the storms that are moving through New York City should hold together as they move eastward. All right, the national radar, let's bring that up and take a look at what's happening. So here's the wide view of all the activity going on in the Northeast down into the northern Mid-Atlantic states. Again, the area in between seems to be holding up quite well. The area to the north and east is starting to weaken. The areas down to the south and west are starting to weaken. So it's the stuff in the middle that is holding up and should hold up for a while longer. The upper trough is going to be supportive of some of these storms. Is going to be supportive of these storms holding together for a longer period of time. Plus the fact that you do have a little bit of a weak wave with whatever is left of Barry. But if you think back to yesterday, you look at the radar signature, you're not seeing any kind of counterclockwise circulation anywhere. Here are the storms in the Midwest that moved out of Iowa now into Illinois. Some very strong storms. Looks like they just moved through St. Louis. Up to the north where we have the tornado watch, there are some scattered heavy thunderstorms that have developed there. We don't see an organized line of any kind yet. A little bit of activity going on in the eastern part of Colorado, moving into western Kansas. Some activity down in West Texas. And we have a bit of a busy night here in western Florida with some thunderstorms. I didn't really analyze this. It kind of looks like there's almost a bit of a sea breeze front here in play with regards to some of these storms. There's also a little bit of severe disturbed weather that is in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, but I'm not seeing anything that looks like it's going to become a threat to become anything tropical from over the next several days. Pressures are actually kind of high, very high down in the south, off the southeast coast and over Florida, so it would be pretty unusual for anything to form. Now here's the NAM from earlier this afternoon. This was the last run of the NAM that we have from 4 o'clock this afternoon. So I don't know why it shows the radar looking like this because it really didn't look this way. It was more in line of what you would normally see that in terms of convection. So I don't know if there was some kind of problem here, but in terms of what we have right now, this actually is not that far off, and the NAM seems to be nailing the idea of intensity here pretty well. I just noticed, by the way, we have some severe thunderstorm warnings up now for a number of counties in southwestern New Jersey. It just went up for Philadelphia and the surrounding counties of Philadelphia up, but not quite to Allentown. That just went up moments ago. So that's the line that's in Pennsylvania that moved out of southeastern Pennsylvania that is held together very well and is moving northeastward. Now, this is supposed to hold together somewhat as it moves across Long Island and then gradually weakens during the overnight. And as we move into tomorrow, we're going to see another upper trough coming through, but this time it doesn't have a tropical system with it, nor will it have the daytime heating on Thursday to play off of like we had today. There will be some daytime heating. We will see temperatures up into the 80s, but we're not going to see what we saw today, which was temperatures up in the 90s and heat indices that were running above 110 in some places. Once that's done, then it's on to the heat on Friday and humidity, and the blazing heat and humidity for Saturday and for Sunday. Some of the numerical guidance for Saturday and Sunday giving highs at Newark, New Jersey, for example, showing 102 for both days. Temperatures, I would not be at all shocked to see 100-degree readings out of all of this for both Saturday and for Sunday. And, of course, with the dew points up into the upper 60s to low 70s at the very least, it's going to be just miserable. So here's the GFS. Let's go to the GFS here. and take a look at what it has to say. So, of course, here are our storms for tonight. I don't know that the GFS handled it particularly well. It doesn't look too bad compared to what the radar is showing us at the time for right now. Again, tomorrow, some scattered storms and clouds. That's actually going to hold temperatures back a bit from Pennsylvania and New Jersey northeastward, probably in the 80s. You go south and west of there, you'll see your 90s. And then here we go for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You can see these isobars are all westerly. You're going to just cook here. Not only that, but you're going to have the upper levels. Remember, you're going to have an upper high here in the east. So that is basically going to stabilize the atmosphere. I think outside of the fact that there might be a pop-up shower or thunderstorm, there will be very little shower or thunderstorm activity going on in the eastern U.S. On Saturday. And also for Sunday, maybe a few more pop-ups along the Appalachians and points westward, but that should be about it. The model does actually generate a few Sunday evening because there is a boundary, a frontal boundary that's going to try to come through, and it gets hung up a bit. I don't know if the GFS may be rushing it a bit. The main push is going to come on Monday with a strong front and some showers and thunderstorms. Wouldn't be surprised if we wind up with another round of severe weather here on Monday. And then we ask ourselves, there's a nice big high that comes down into the Dakotas with some nice dew points. The problem is, here in the east, is if you notice, I'm into Tuesday morning now, the front looks like it gets hung up a little bit. Now, we'll get out of the hot air, for sure, but we may have to deal with some overrunning, and we might have to wait for a wave to develop. And the GFS keeps wanting to keep the front very, very close. So if that's the case, we could wind up with temperatures that will be lower than what we'll see this weekend. Clearly, we'll be down in the in the lower or middle 80s, and possibly, depending on cloud cover, we could be even into the 70s, near 80 for highs, and the possibility that we could see some rain or showers on Tuesday and on Wednesday. So a lot really is going to depend on the front pushing far enough to the south and east. Now, why is it doing this? Well, the upper air is going to show us what's happening here. Now, remember, we've been talking about the fact that the jet stream, the southern part of the jet stream pulls up north of New York City. That blue area in Canada is where you would like to be because that's where all the dry air is, the low dew point air. Well, we're going to have a trough swing into the east, but notice what happens to the bottom part of that trough stretches out and drops southwestward into the Ohio Valley. That is not good because the front, up until at least through Monday, you've got these west-southwest winds in the upper atmosphere. So you get a front to move through, it's going to try and push offshore, but it's going to eventually run into winds that are going to be pretty much parallel to the front itself, so the front winds up slowing down. And if the bottom part of that trough separates and drops down into the Ohio Valley, like you see here, now all of a sudden you've got south-southwest winds here along the eastern seaboard. And that means that the front just comes to an absolute grinding halt. So you want the short wave, if you want to really get into the nice dry air, you want this short wave not to do that. You want it to just move along. It can be as deep as it wants to be, but you want it to move along and bring in that drier air into the northeast. But if it does something like this, where the bottom part of the trough stretches and drops into the Ohio Valley, then you got a problem. And by the way, when you look at this setup like this, just want to illustrate here, this is if there were a tropical system sitting here in the Bahamas, it would probably run right through that alleyway just off the North Carolina coast, northeastward to just south of southern New England. It would just kind of pass around the periphery of the high. But the trough like this, if you are envisioning a storm impacting the eastern seaboard, you want something like this, maybe a little bit further to the west, and the flow along the east coast a little bit more southerly as opposed to southwesterly. But it's interesting that we are seeing these troughs in the east continuing into the long range. Gradually, that whole thing just weakens and drops down into the lower Mississippi Valley. The system from last week, when we had the front that was far enough out, remember we saw the energy drop down into the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. In this particular instance, the energy stays mostly on land, so it would argue against any kind of tropical development on the southern part of that trough. And also, you've got an upper high that starts to build as we go into the last weekend of July in the eastern part of the United States. So we might see a comeback of some heat and humidity when we get to next weekend. I know we still haven't gotten through this weekend yet, but this might argue for some heat and humidity coming back next weekend. We shall see. I just want to take a look at the European to see if it does the same thing. And actually, the European, when you take a look at this, see, the European wants to just take the trough and move it along. It doesn't drop it and stretch it out like the GFS. So if the European is correct, it would argue for the cold front making it through and pushing far enough south and east so that weather conditions improve quite nicely for the couple of days next week, where we'll have reasonable dew points and reasonable temperatures to go with it, along with relatively dry conditions and as far as rain is concerned, and sunshine. And it also maintains in its longer range look this west-northwest flow, where the southern edge of the westerlies down into Virginia, West Virginia, and Virginia. So it has a totally different look on what it thinks is going to happen as we head into the super long range. The GFS has this. Again, the bottom of that trough stretches out and drops southwestward. The European just says, no, we're just going to take that short wave and just move it right along and kick it out. The GFS, I think, seems to be a bit more energetic with its overall look. It may or may not be correct. One of the things about this time of year is it's, when you're focusing a lot on the kind of short range weather that we have to deal with, you don't often get a lot of time to really look too closely at the long range. So a very, very busy night here. Otherwise, I just noticed that the flash flood warnings have been extended over parts of northern New Jersey. And I'm envisioning that there might be some more flash flood and possibly some more severe thunderstorm warnings to play with. Shelly Man Studios, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat tonight. Let me get that over here. And nice to see a nice crowd on board tonight. That's always a good thing to see. Now, we've got Alfred Phillips telling us that there are 215 active wildfires in Alaska in July of 2019. Alfred, you had that big upper high sitting over you for such a long period of time, so not at all surprised by that. Of course, the wildfires that were going on in northwest Canada and also up in parts of Saskatchewan and Ontario, we've been seeing from time to time some of that smoke and haze down even down my way. David Schwartz, you're getting your rain for your garden, David. Lightning strikes are close. Yeah, there's a lot of lightning strikes going on with these thunderstorms. Let me just see here on my radar shot that I can look at off camera. Hang on one second here. Oh yeah, there's a ton of lightning strikes going on all across New York City. The North Shore of Long Island is really getting hammered right now by these storms that are moving eastward. And then the second band that's back in Southeast PA moving into Jersey, that actually has weakened a little bit. Well, not a lot. The line's gotten a little more, slightly more fractured, but it's still holding together pretty well, I guess. But the northern part of that line has really blossomed out all of a sudden as it moves on to the east. And let me just make sure they haven't added any additional warnings, because I have a feeling they're going to be doing that shortly. All right, nothing on there so far. Thank you. Yes, Shelly Man, I got my hair done today. I had to get. It was so brutally hot. I usually get my hair cut pretty short, but I had him actually go a little shorter this time because the heat was just really getting to me. Mark G, if you feel like you're in the donut hole with the lack of rain, reminds me of last winter with the lack of snow. Need rain for the lawns and gardens. Yeah, even in at times when you get these widespread, I would call tonight's activity certainly widespread thunderstorm activity. There is definitely an uneven scheme about those thunderstorms, and there are holes that show up. Jason Barry, your storms were disappointing. I did see some warnings up your way. But I got to tell you, the lightning strikes, like I said, right now going on with the storms moving in and around New York City, are pretty awesome. And they're actually, I'm going to get thunderstorms even at my house. 95 heat index, 105 for you, Mark G. Not a drop of rain, burned grass and crunchy, and you need a downpour. Well, maybe tomorrow will be your chance. There's still some stuff around, so you might not be done yet. A lot of this stuff is going to hang around for the overnight, which when you get heating like this, you need that. You went with the 2 on the Buzz Shavers. It's a 4 on the top and just shy of a 0 on the sides. I wanted him to leave a little bit, but I have gotten 0s on the side before. I started buzzing my hair down about, 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe it was even a little longer than that. I just love what I would refer to as minimalism. I love the minimalistic idea. I have no patience, and I certainly don't want to spend my time, drying my hair, combing my hair, fixing my hair. When it's like this, you wash it, you run a towel over it, run your fingers through it, and you're done. Tomato plants, a lot of folks telling me that their tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchini and all the rest of it growing out of control, and that's a good thing because that's going to lead to a very, very good harvest. And yes, Snowy 23, a very bad hair day indeed. All right, folks, got to go because I got to get ready to go update my shows here. Thanks for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. Of course, I did an extra weather in 5 this evening earlier when these storms were developing. Except I didn't do 5 days in 5 minutes. I just did tonight in 5 minutes. So you can see how these thunderstorms evolved from earlier. But we'll have a weather in 5 tomorrow morning, and we'll have our regular live stream for tomorrow night. Probably, it'll depend on the thunderstorm activity because that does, if there's warnings going on, that occupies my time somewhat. So I'll have to move the live stream around like I did tonight, pushing it back to 8 o'clock. All right, folks, have a great night. Again, thanks for being here. And by the way, for those of you who really enjoy weather and really get into it, if you're not on my Patreon platform, Jason Barry, you can sign up. It's just $2 a month, and the link is up there on the chat for you. And it's also on the descriptor of this live stream or the descriptor of this video if you're watching it on a replay. We do a lot of extra stuff on there that I don't do on the website, don't do on Facebook. Patreon members get also their own video. We had a live chat tonight for about an hour as these storms were getting underway, a live private chat. So, think about it. It's great for the weather geeks and those of you who use weather that need weather information for professional reasons. Okay, have a great night, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.